This is the impact of Rosa Parks. I'm Jackson Cousin, and this is my IMP. So the early to mid 1900s was a time period in which racial inequality was high. Reconstruction was coming to an end, and white politicians began to abandon the cause of protecting African Americans. The Smithsonian National Museum shares that African American men were largely barred from voting. Legislation known as Jim Crow laws banned and segregated people of color from whites in jobs, public gathering places, houses, and even schools. Bus segregation was also a crucial part of these laws. Taking away their voting rights was just the first step in taking away their civil rights. Over the next 40 years, these politicians began to attempt to restore their so-called supremacy. There was a woman who wanted to end this so. Her name was Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was an African-American activist who had aspirations of changing the system. The story of Eloise Cobell, which speaks of her troubles in challenging the government, inspired me to write about Parks, who went through similar struggles. Both of these stories represent the courage and sacrifices needed to challenge the government. It all began in December 1943, when Parks joined the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, where she was elected as secretary. According to the Library of Congress, Parks then became the leader of her NAACP's local youth council in 1949. 12 years of this participation led to the moment that ultimately changed the course of history. The first notable outcome of her actions was her inspiration on others. According to the National Archives, her arrest became a rallying point around which African American community organized a peaceful protest under the role of Martin Luther King Jr., the minister of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And he emerged as a leader during the well-coordinated and peaceful bus boycott that lasted 381 days. And he captured the world's attention. It was during the boycott that Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. achieved global fame, and he acquainted the public with his powerful oratory. She brought out Martin Luther King Jr., the king and the father of the civil rights movement. Later on, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote on his view on Parks. In his book titled Strive Toward Freedom, he wrote that millions of Negroes all over this nation have a new sense of dignity because Parks inspired an action which in turn inspired them. Her influence was great enough to be included in the words of one of the most influential civil rights leaders of her time. However, actions against the government, such as Parks's, result in great consequences, both personal and legal. Her actions on the bus on December 1st, 1955, got her arrested. According to Jeanne Thuoris, a political science professor at Brooklyn College, in an article written for the Library of Congress magazine, her bus protest plunged her family into nearly a decade of political, economic, and health struggles, which is shown in her 1955 to 1956 tax returns. As if the economic struggles weren't imposing enough, she also received a hefty amount of death threats. Confrontation on the Bridge by Jacob Lawrence represents the process of pushing through fierce obstacles and continuing to work towards a goal, which is what Parks represented through these threats that she was receiving. The perseverance of Rosa Parks through the daunting oppression of others represents that of no other in the civil rights movement. Although her actions on the bus are often seen as her only contributions to the movement, she did much more. As mentioned earlier, she played a large role in the NAACP. According to Kayla Richard, a graduate of Texas A&M University with a political science degree, in addition to being the secretary of the NAACP, Parks became the advisor to her NAACP local youth council. In this role, Parks supported the youth activists in challenging the segregation in Montgomery. Under the leadership of Parks, they also challenged the segregation of libraries, which prevented African Americans from checking out books. Also, the Library of Congress shares that Rosa Parks' political activities in Detroit were even more diverse than they had been in Montgomery. She worked on prisoner support, helped run the Detroit chapter of the Friends of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and took part in the growing Black Power movement across the country. She also worked towards changing the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. She traveled regularly to take part in the growing Black Power Committee, and she traveled across the country doing so. Her actions, external to those regarding the bus, prove why she played a more prominent role in the progression of the civil rights movement than nearly all others. So on the other side of the argument is that a teenage woman named Claudette Colvin played a more prominent role in the progression of the civil rights movement. Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old girl who boycotted the bus system nearly a year before Parks did. And people pushed for her story to be seen as more pivotal than Parks's. Philip, who has a degree in history from Yale University, in his book Claudette Colvin, Twice Towards Justice, criticizes campaigners for failing to recognize Colvin, stating that, "I hope that Claudette Colvin, Twice Towards Justice, changes the way that people view the Montgomery bus protests." However, it is crucial to understand that all contributors of the time of Parks played a big role in progressing the civil rights movement. However, some had a more highlightable and prominent role in progressing it. Comparing Rosa Parks to Claudette Colvin in terms of their influence on others is like comparing Martin Luther King Jr. to a fellow activist, Malcolm X. Although both of these men made a large difference in progressing the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr.'s actions are more highlighted and they played a more prominent role in progressing the movement. In conclusion, Rosa Parks paved the way for progression in the civil rights movement. Her actions on the bus in Montgomery on December 1st, 1955, and her contributions outside of that all support her legacy. She is rightfully labeled as the mother of the civil rights movement because of the differences she made. Through the sacrifices she faced, her support in the NAACP, and most importantly, her influence on others, on the African American community around the world, she achieved global fame and played a crucial role in the progression of the civil rights movement. This is my bibliography. Thank you.
Nice job, Jackson. Okay, I got 2 questions for you, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So for the first one, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the process? Tell us about that.
Okay, so my research question was originally focused on the broader topic of the civil rights movement. Instead of focusing as just one person or a group of people, I was focusing on the movement as a whole and different contributors inside of it, but it evolved into a more narrower focus on Rosa Parks because her courage and her disobedience and her other contributions all stood out to me, and I believed I could write a stronger argument with just using her instead of the overall contribution to the civil rights movement.
Fantastic. And then as a follow-up to that, what are the implications of these findings to the broader community? Who is this research for?
Okay, so the findings of my paper, although they don't directly influence anything, the teaching of it is that accepting it can be applied to maybe like if there's another political movement going on, you can accept that all of the contributors towards it, they influenced it and they helped it, but some of them may have made a bigger difference, which in this case, Rosa Parks played a bigger impact and made a bigger difference in her movement.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thank you.